Well, hello folks, and welcome to 10-Minute Modular. On today's 10-Minute Modular, we're going to talk about one of the physically largest modules in our rack, and that is the Modul synthesizer by Audible Instruments, which in the real world is Elements by Mutable Instruments. This is an amazing module. It's huge. It has a lot. Can I get through it in 10 minutes? Let's find out. Ready? Start the clock, and let's go. Okay, so I have the Modul synthesizer here, which is Elements, next to the Resonator, which in the real world is Rings, and I'm doing this on purpose because these two modules are very, very similar. The right-hand side of this module is essentially the same as Resonator. Essentially. I mean, okay, so we have frequency, which are our coarse and fine, and our structure, which is similar to geometry. Now here, damping, brightness, position. We have damping, brightness, position. Very, very similar to the Resonator. Space is an additional reverb knob, which is pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I've initialized this, put it on the original mode. We'll talk about the chord mode a little bit later. And I'm going to run a sequence. So let's quickly go through the right side. There, you can see how space is just a reverb. Position. Much like the position knob here, of where on the object are we striking it. And that's kind of the key to this module. Where are we striking it? How are we exciting? You see, whereas here we had a strum that basically just said, hey, pluck a note, start a note of some kind, depending on how we're going to set up these buttons up here. This one is, we're going to resonate it, but the way we strike it, the way we excite the note is going to change based on the left side. Now right now I'm using the strike mode. And here if I turn it down, that's essentially volume. How hard am I striking it? The timbre definitely relates to how it sounds. Although, you remember, we kind of did that with geometry and position on the Resonator. And sure enough, we can change it here, and we can change the geometry, as well as the brightness. So between brightness, geometry, position, damping, and timbre, we can get a lot of really amazing sounds. And that brings us to the mallet knob. The mallet knob and the flow knob, as we'll see a little bit later, is not what you expect. It's not a consistent go from one to the other. What it is a whole bunch of steps. And as we step through, you'll hear that we're actually striking this imaginary object in a different way. Hear how we're almost like bowing a piece of metal. And as I move up, you'll hear different types of excitements. There's a more striking sound. That has a little addition of noise to it. That's interesting. Well, that's quite clean. Okay, now we have a flam. Now we have basically two mallets going blup, 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 blup. Let's see what happens if we keep going. That flam gets a little wider. And here in the end, it's almost like dropping a pebble on a drum head where you get bounces. Now that's strike. I'm going to turn strike down, and I'm going to pass exactly the same sequence into blow. And as you might imagine, this is the sound of, you would think, a wind instrument, but it's actually more like blowing across the top of a beer bottle. And our timbre also adjusts the sound of that. And of course, anything on this side can be affected by the resonance on the right side. So we have a kind of interesting blowing sound. It really sounds, don't expect it to be like a flute. I really think of more panpipes or blowing across a beer bottle, that kind of interesting sound. And guess what? The flow, much like Mallet, is not a consistent A to B cycle. It's a bunch of steps. So let's hear what those steps sound like. See, different tones of wind, different amounts of wind. And by the way, we can mix this. Now, there is a subtle hint here, and that's this dotted line, that this contour has to do with the bow and the blow excitement voices, but not the mallet. What is that? Well, the contour is basically like a built-in ADSR. So let's see what the contour does. See, that is like changing the damping. Basically expanded the gate, didn't it? So this is a very short, it's like having the attack on an ADSR very fast and the release very fast. So we can really control the structure, the attack of this sound using that. Now we've done blow, we've done strike. Let's go to bow. And of course, bow, we're going to assume is going to sound like a violin or something bowed. It's more like, think of a resonant piece of steel or wood or something and using a violin bow on that. It's a subtle effect, but you can tell it's different from blow. Okay, one of the things I like to do is use the bow or blow or even strike input of elements or sound of elements. But I'm going to hook it up to MIDI. I'm going to use my CV as volts per octave and my gate for my gate. And what I'm going to do is I have a little voice here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this voice. Yeah, kind of interesting. And now if I bring the contour down so I'm only getting the blow, these sharp attacks. It's a really interesting way to layer it. So let's do something a little different. Let's take the even VCO and go to a sine wave. I'm going to try to add a little bit of the blow sound. And using this to layer sounds on top of another sound is really a very cool voicing. So let me put it back to the sequencer because I want to show you a cool additional feature that this synthesizer module has. We right-click, we have a chord mode. So check this out. Let's go into regular mode. And you know what? I'm going to add a little of the Mallet strike. And now we're going to switch it from original mode into chord mode and check out what happens. How cool is this? And now let's start playing with the mallet and flow. Wow, that almost sounds like a staccato string section. Let's release the damping. Maybe change the contour. And add some space. Well, folks, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight as to what could be done with the Modul synthesizer or elements. There is a lot of sounds in here. Every little tweak of every little knob seems to go in a completely new direction. So enjoy that, practice that, play with that, and as always, stay curious. Okay, Nigel, back to you, buddy.